Oh my god, hi! Happy 2026. New year, same, me. I did want to film this video with my new microphones that I bought because the audio on these videos is driving me crazy. But every component needs to be charged, so they're charging. Next time, we're going for cozy vibes, hence the teacup. This is full of Red Bull. I don't tell you how to live your life, don't tell me how to live mine. Welcome to the monthly month. January does not have a theme other than feed your cats at 5 o'clock. And dry January, which I have a healthy relationship with alcohol, so I don't need to quit drinking for a month because I don't drink in excess. I didn't really have a theme other than I'm cleaning out the pipes. I am going through my oldest TBR books and reading them and deleting them if I don't want to read them. We're going to wrap up our monthly month with a whopping 13 books. It is not normal to read that many books. If you read half a book, that's normal. I'm not normal, okay? I want to make that abundantly clear. 13 books a month, insane numbers. Insane numbers. This is not sustainable. I have not finished a single book in February. January was just insane, and 3 of them were audiobooks, so those just go crazy fast, okay? So we're not judging. We're here to listen and love and learn and grow and read. If you follow me on Goodreads, I put all the books I read every year into its own book tag. So we're going to go through that together. They are all in the book stack, and I just don't feel like taking that bitch apart right now because it is every single book I've ever read for this year. I'm not taking her apart right now. The first book I read was a duology. It was the Carve the Mark duology by Veronica Roth. And if you're itching your little brain, like, where do I know that name? It's the woman who wrote the Divergent series. So Carve the Mark is set in a galaxy far, far away. And it's powered by kind of like the force in energy called current, which is really confusing if you're listening on audio and you're like, my current gift is. Are you going to have a future gift that's different? Okay, sorry. Literary joke, English joke. So we're following 2 of our main characters, Syra and Akos. Can you guess how they said it in the audiobook? Syra's gift is, if you read Shatter Me, it's a lot like Juliet's gift, where like she can just push the current into people and it causes like such harm and distress, like it really like corrupts them to have that much current flow. Akko's gift is like Warner's and the other guy whose name I forgot. So Akos's gift disrupts the current. Like he doesn't feel the current. He can't like use it. But Syra has too much of it, basically. So they're very yin and yang, very one to the other. Akos was kidnapped from his home planet, like the first 2 chapters, to come to Syra's planet. Everyone, like not everyone, but like certain people get a prophecy. And so his prophecy is related to his kidnapping and to Syra and her family. Syra is used as a weapon by her brother, who is the like ruler of her planet, and he's trying to like really just take over everything. So he uses her as a weapon for her current gift to like torture people into getting what he wants. And then Akos he brings in to aid Syra because like using her current gift so much, like she can't function afterwards. Like she's exhausted. She essentially has a chronic illness. Like she's chronically in pain because of the current running through her. But when her and Akos are touching, they like it cancels out. So she's like she's not in pain. So overall, I think that the like premise of the story was really good. I do feel like it wasn't executed perfectly for my taste. I can't tell you exactly how or in what way, but like I just didn't love it, and that's fine. I didn't have to. I read it though. It was on my list. It sounded interesting, but it just didn't quite hit the mark for me, you know. Anyways, the sequel was called The Fates Divide. That was the first 2 books I read in January. The next book I read was called We Are the Ants by Sean David Hutchinson. And this one is about a young man, boy, who gets abducted by aliens. And they put him in front of a button and they tell him, in not so many words, that if he pushes the button, the Earth will not self-destruct. But if he doesn't push the button, everyone on Earth and everything in Earth and the Earth, all of it is just gonna end. Like the world as we know it, end. Like everyone's gonna die. Okay, interesting. Yeah, that sounded alright. But Henry isn't sure he wants to push the button. He is like 15, 16. He's kind of like an angsty teenager living, with a single mom and a nasty older brother. And the world has just never been kind to him. He is on the fence about pushing the button. And so it's kind of just like his whole turmoil of like, will he, won't he? Is he going to push the button or not? A year prior to the end of the world, his boyfriend committed suicide. So he's already like othered by his classmates for being abducted by aliens and just winding up in the middle of town naked, on random days. And then also being gay, and then also being the gay kid whose boyfriend killed himself. So he is not thriving. Like, his life is a little shitty. His mom is a single mom. She she used to be a chef, and his dad left, like, after the first time he got abducted. So his mom, like, she quit making food and she just became a waitress. And his grandma is like in the early to mid stages of Alzheimer's. So she is living with them. If you've ever loved someone who had Alzheimer's, it's not always easy to live in their world when their world has real world consequences. Like, she tries to cook something at 3 a.m. and sets off all the fire alarms, or she says something really racist at the dinner table. And his brother's like such a dick to him. So he's not sure if he wants to save the world because it's kind of shitty. Because the world is shitty when you're 16 years old. You definitely should not be the one to make a decision about saving the world or not. But he's kind of like going through his journey of like relearning how to love the world and if it's worth saving. Again, sounded pretty interesting. I think it was written in like probably like 2016, 2017. There was a specific type of writing and like crude kind of writing and humor used in that time period. If you read like Spontaneous, that book I think had it too, that it was just like unnecessarily crude at the beginning in a way that was trying to be like funny and relatable. Ultimately, the climax really let me down. So this one I gave 3 stars. I don't know if I said this, but I gave Carp the Mark and The Fates Divide also 3 stars. So it's a very mediocre start to my year. I did not necessarily love this book or enjoy it very much. Again, no major critiques of it. It just isn't for me. And that's fine. That's life. It happens. I am not the person I was when I put these books on my TBR. It's okay to not enjoy them and to just move on. Sweeping in the 4th book slot, our first banger of the year, Helium by Rudy Francisco, a poetry collection done by a poet who still writes today and is still pretty prevalent. But like, I found out about him during a Button Poetry Live. I was super obsessed with Button Poetry in like 2016, 2017 era. Put his book on my TBR and I never read it. And then I regretted it after I read it because I was like, I should have been reading his books all along. I will happily read every book Rudy Francisco ever puts out into the world. All of his poems were wonderful. I used book darts to like go mark all the poems that I really liked. I had to rip book darts out of other books that I wasn't going to read again to give myself more book darts to mark up this book. It's less than 100 pages. This book was so good. I really love his writing style, the creativity, the craft, everything about it was so interesting and unique. And there was poems of love and poems of diversity and how he struggled in his life and also how much he loves this person, and to the girl at the coffee shop he wishes he could talk to, and him as a little boy learning to swim and finding the helium to lift himself up. Overall, 1,000,000 out of 10. I loved this book so much. Those first 4 books were books that I had taken screenshots off of BuzzFeed quizzes or Button Poetry events to read, and I never put them into my TBR, actually, on Goodreads. So the next book is technically the oldest rated book on my TBR, or it was for the last 9 years. It's called One by Sarah Crossan. I was like, this is a really interesting thing. I've never read a book about conjoined twins. So this one was about Grace and Tippy, Tippy and Grace. 2 sisters, 2 hearts, 2 dreams, 2 lives, 1 body. Which is really interesting. I never see conjoined twins represented in media. Like, almost never. The only one I can think of that's not like a real person is in American Horror Story. And even that one, they didn't use real life actors or actresses to portray that. It, for me, also felt pretty flat. It was written in not quite verse, but like in that style of writing, that it wasn't like a traditional novel. It was just written very like a poetry book. So there wasn't a lot of depth to it. It just like went very quickly. The little blurb doesn't really sound like that, and it doesn't really give you any real indication of what the book is like. So like the first two words are Grace and Tippy, but the whole book is just Grace's point of view. So you're only getting one point of view about these two sisters. Okay, fine, but then it's not Grace and Tippy. It's just Grace. It would have been more interesting to get both perspectives of what it's like for both people to live in one body. So it just was not as full as I wanted it to be. It was not as groundbreaking, world shattering as I thought it would be. And I feel like part of that too comes from it being almost legendary, living on the first thing I see on my TBR for years. It becomes like sensationalized of like, wow, this is the oldest book on my TBR. And then you're reading it and it's just like, it's just another book. I read the afterword by the author, and she did a lot of research on what it's like to live conjoined. So I did give it extra credit for that. It got a 3.5 instead of just a 2 or a 3. Credit where credit is due. It was well researched, but not well written. Unfortunately, I also had my first 1 star of the year. So we had a 5-star and we had our 1 star. We've covered almost all the stars in 1 month. The book that got a 1 star, Believe Arexic by J.J. Johnson. I did go through a period of time where I was consuming a lot of media about eating disorders. So this book is about a girl, 15. It's like part memoir, part fiction, who gets admitted to an outpatient hospital. Inpatient, I guess, because they're in, I don't know. She gets admitted to a mental hospital and she has to go through her eating disorder recovery journey in like the 80s. It just, I don't know why I kept it on here anyway. She like gets signed in, and as soon as her parents leave, she starts like freaking out and she doesn't want to be there. She decides to stay. She can't check herself out because she's a minor. Her like nurses are really terrible, except for one of them, and like the rules are not great for her. She has to go through the program in order to leave. The description, I think I'm trying to figure out why I wanted to keep this book. Punctuated by dark humor, gritty realism, and profound moments of self-discovery, Believe Arexic is a stereotype-defying exploration of belief and human connection. I didn't feel that coming through. It was gritty and dark for sure, but it didn't feel realistic in any kind of way. Like for me, the main character, Jennifer, she's 15 going into this program. Pretty much everyone else in the program is like over 18. So there's already like a weird dynamic there. Her eating disorder is pretty centered around bulimia and not necessarily anorexia. So they call her like a bulimorexic or something, where she was like kind of bulimic, kind of anorexic, but like somewhere in the middle. The tricky thing about books that center eating disorders is writing a book that doesn't glorify an eating disorder. And I don't feel like this one hit that mark. I feel like maybe it didn't necessarily glorify it, but it really was not gritty about the actual eating disorder, only about the living conditions of this poor girl and the people around her not being on her side or good people at all. It's really, really not brought up how she like recovers at all. It just like she's admitted and she cries every single day. And then it tells you a bunch of ways in which you can like sneak around the program and like get through without actually recovering, which is always hard with books like this about being honest and promoting / encouraging, even in the telling of the truth. You're giving new ideas to people that may not have thought of that before. In her recovery journey, she never talks about the difficulty of not wanting to go throw up after every meal. Like she never talks about the difficulty of the mind game that it is to have an eating disorder. Like she'll go through her day and then like she's just crying. Like she's not talking about like what's really going on. She's just like, and then I cried again. Kind of the second she was admitted to the hospital, she was healed. She never struggled with what was on her plate or eating more food unless it was like liver or eggs, and they told her to like put sugar on her eggs to make them easier to put down. And she never really like struggled with consuming more sugar in that way. The dots are not clicking. It's not lining up at all. And then like she's just traumatized by the nursing staff. Like the whole book. Just traumatized by one nurse in particular. So it's just like, just put her in here to be traumatized. So that was my opinion. That's my opinion. It has a 4.22 on Goodreads out of 389 reviews. So one of those is me. being a hater. Okay, next I read Allegedly by Tiffany J. Jackson. Nope, Day Jackson. D. Jackson. Next, I read Allegedly by Tiffany D. Jackson. This one was also on audio, and this is about a 15-year-old girl who was accused of murdering a baby when she was like 9 years old, and so she like was sent to juvie, and then she's now living in like a halfway house kind of situation. She is fine with her sentence for allegedly killing a baby until she winds up pregnant, and she can't have a baby if she's a ward of the state, and they will take her baby. She is now on a journey to clear her name, like uncover the truth so that she can be free to live her life and have her baby. I enjoyed this. It was kind of like more of a psychological thriller. You do have a very unreliable narrator who experiences blackouts from traumas that she's endured and her like very chaotic mother coming in and out. Important to the plot, the main character, Mary, is black, and the baby that she allegedly killed was white. She doesn't know for sure if she did it or not. She's saying allegedly a lot. She might have, she might not have, but like the events of that night are trapped under a blackout. Like she has very little recollection. So her recount of the story is very different than what the courts heard and what her mother told her to say allegedly and what her lawyers told her to say allegedly. She is working at a nursing home. She meets this cute boy named Ted. They hook up like one time and she gets pregnant. When she realizes that she's pregnant is when she realizes she needs to come clean about what she remembers. As she goes through the story, she kind of discovers that she's been sensationalized almost in the way that like Gypsy Rose was. There's documentaries and books and all this stuff came out about her and like her case is famous. And so like she had no idea that that was going on because she's been in prison this whole time. It's now between her and her fancy new lawyer to figure out how to clear her name. Allegedly. Fucked me up. 4.5 stars. Coming in hot at number 8, we have Murder, Magic, and What We Wore by Kelly Jones. I should have taken this one off my TBR, but I've already bought it, so I had to read it because it was in my possession and I'm broken. The year is 1818. The city is London, and our heroine, a 16-year-old girl, Anise Whitworth. Anise, like black licorice. She learned her father's dead, she has no money, and she believes that he was a spy for the British government. She decides that she's going to become a spy and figure out who killed him. But then also, they don't want her to be a spy, the spy masters. They saw a 16-year-old girl and they were like, please leave. She has this ability to glamour clothing in the way that she sews it. She can sew glamours into it to make you look like a different person. And the spy masters are still like, please leave. You are 16 years old and a woman. Can't have that. So she decides she'll open up a shop. She'll make a bunch of money because her father's money is gone. So her aunt is trying to figure out how she's going to pay for everything and pay for her niece that she's now in charge of. It is not as interesting as it sounds. I promise. Most of the book is her sewing dresses. It's just her sewing dresses and meeting up with her aunt and talking to a boy and figuring out how she's going to pay her maid. And her maid is her best friend. And so little actual plot happens. It was so incredibly difficult to finish this book. Like, genuinely so difficult. I fell asleep constantly reading this book. And it's like barely, 250 pages? It was a tough read, okay? It was so difficult to get through. Not because the text was difficult, it was just so boring. But it wasn't offensively bad, so it got a 2, not a 1. That's my parameter. If it's offensive, it's a 1 star. If it's just bad, 2 stars. That's Murder, Magic, and What We Wore. It kind of reminded me of like an Enola Millie Bobby Brown Holmes. And if you've ever read The Sweetness at the Bottom of the Pie, that one is also about a young girl who is a detective, and it's got like, that one was a little bit more silly and whimsical, but this one was not. I've read The Changeling by Victor Lavelle. This one is also on audio. It was so good. It was so good. It was so like a fairy tale. It brought you like on ups and downs and like through a bunch of different crazy shit. It was crazy. I really, really enjoyed it. Was it a fairy tale? Was it an allegory? Was it a warning? Who's to say? The main character, his name is Apollo. His father disappeared when he was young, and he kept having reoccurring dreams about his father coming back. He found this like box of books that his father allegedly left for him when he was little, and now he's an adult, and he's married to this woman that he loves very much. Her name is Emma, and they're expecting a baby, and everything is wonderful. And then she has the baby, and then one night she is like slowly descending into madness. She chains up Apollo and she murders their baby, and she runs away and is like gone. And so he loses his mind. He loves that baby more than anything in his whole life. He gets sent to prison for like holding a bunch of her coworkers hostage, demanding they tell him where she is. And so once he gets out of prison, he has to meet with his probation officer, and he has to make money to like figure out all this stuff. And so his profession before he was arrested was collecting books and then reselling them, like finding like collectibles and then reselling them. So he is like back in the game, and he finds this like the rarest edition of To Kill a Mockingbird in history. And so he like meets up with this guy to sell it, and then this guy, like, it gets crazy. I can't say anymore. But it's called The Changeling because his wife Emma believed that their child had been swapped with the changeling child. Is it an allegory for postpartum depression? Is it a warning about protecting your children and keeping them off the internet? Is it just a fantastical tale? Who's to say? It was amazing. I loved it. You should read it. Okay. The last two books I was able to finish in the longest month in the world, January, were called Spindlefire and Winter Glass by Lexa Hillier. If you had to take a shot in the dark, you'd probably hit the barn because Spindlefire is a Sleeping Beauty retelling. I love Sleeping Beauty. She's my favorite princess. I have her crown. You saw them in my book wrap-ups last year. Any kind of retelling, I'm in. This one I feel like relied really heavily on the reader coming into it with a love of the characters, because about like halfway through I was like, I don't think I know these characters as themselves in the book, but who I'm picturing and how I'm considering their backstory from like the Disney film. The kingdom burned all the spindles when Aurora was cursed, but the fairy blessings came with a price. So Aurora is cursed without a voice. She has like grace. She was gifted grace, but they took her voice, which is already against the original text. And then they gave her beauty in return for her ability to feel, like touch sensations. So she's lost the ability to communicate with words and the ability to feel anything. Like no hugs, no cuts, no hunger, no nothing. She can't feel anything. The last fairy who lifted the curse of the death, who turned it into a sleep, was going to take her sight in return for her ability to like not die. But the way of fairies, it was worded in a particular way that they took the sight of her older half-sister who's a bastard, instead. So it's two sisters, Aurora and Isabel. Isabel is blind because of the king and queen's decision to save Aurora. And Aurora cannot speak and she cannot feel. The way Isabel and Aurora communicate is Aurora like kind of taps messages into Isbay's hand so that they can still communicate with each other. I do feel like the book, for a book that describes two women with a disability, it is rarely taken into consideration. I couldn't even count the times that Isbay said, or people said to her, you need to see this. I need to see him. I need to go see her. You can't see! You're blind! It just, like, even with the language of the way the book was written, was so, like, we did not rub our two brain cells together to change our language to consider the disability in progress. Like, it talked about Isbay, and it very rarely mentioned her being blind, other than, like, oh, she's blind. It wasn't like and I felt scared, I couldn't see, I tripped over something, like, I had to picture this, blah, blah, blah. Like, it was still, like, written as if she were not blind. So I didn't love that. And then Aurora, like, when she pricks her finger, her body stays in one kingdom, and then her, like, essence is transported into this fairy realm. And in the fairy realm, she can talk, and she can, like, feel things, but it doesn't talk about her, like, struggling to speak or finding her voice, or, like, if I were a writer and I was talking about somebody or writing about someone that couldn't speak and then very suddenly could, I would talk about the pain in my throat, the weird vibration coming through, like the way my mouth feels with saliva, like just anything. Give me something. Give me any kind of something to make this real and tangible. So the first book is about Aurora being under the sleeping curse. The second book is about Isbay figuring out who her mother is. It was fine. It was nothing sensational. I think I gave them maybe 2 or 3 stars. The first one got 2. The first one got 3, and then the second one got 2. I think because of like the disability representation being so weird and not well done. This is again what happens when you pick out books when you're 20 and try to read them when you're 30. And thus concludes my month, my January wrap up. I didn't want to make another stab and gab. So it is February that I'm filming this. It is Black History Month. I am reading only books by Black authors for the entire month. Currently reading All About Love by Bell Hooks. Like half of this book stack is pulled out because books by Black authors. And then I have this little pile here, books I bought from thrift books that were already on my TBR that I just wanted to have a physical copy of to read. With Valentine's Day coming up, obviously All About Love. I have Love and Color over here, and then a bunch of other romance books to read up before the 14th. And then we'll get on to reading other books too. And I also cannot wait to read. I'm very excited. Follow me on Instagram. I've been posting on there a little bit of what is going on for that. I will try to make a TikTok if you want to follow me on there. Everything is under Madly Peculiar, same way it's spelled here. I know that it's Black History Month right now, and I'm already looking ahead to Women's History Month. I thought it'd be funny if I read a book that had 0 male main characters. Not even main, just 0 male characters at all. So if you know of any such books that exist, let me know. I'm hunting. But we keep reading, we keep resisting, we keep our whimsy, we will survive. Go read a book or something. Love you, bye.
I do fear that these mics are not going to work. Was this in the shot the whole time? The whole time. This I don't think is connected at all. It doesn't feel right. I have to return my